Well, howdy everyone, my name's Chris and today I'm testing out the very interesting Sigma 50mm f1.4 lens. Fast 50mm lenses are one of the most popular camera lenses out there, so it's a surprise that Sigma took so long to bring one out of their own. They are popular for two major reasons. Firstly, an f1.4 lens lets in 16 times more light than your kit lens does at 50mm. That means it's way easier to shoot indoors or shoot at night, especially video. This nighttime video footage, shot at f1.4, wouldn't even be possible with a slow kit lens. Secondly, the very wide maximum aperture of f1.4 gives you a very narrow depth of field, which means your backgrounds go nicely out of focus. Look at the blurry background in this shot. This picture was taken with an aperture of f4. Now let's open up the aperture to f2.8, twice as wide again, to f2, and twice as wide again, to f1.4. As you can see, the wider aperture not only means more light coming in, but a very blurry background. 50mm is quite a zoomed in focal length on most digital cameras, which use the common APS-C sensor size. So this lens is great for shooting portraits or individual subjects. 50mm is not ideal for general purpose photography as it's not a very wide angle, unless you're using Canon's expensive full-frame cameras. So if you want a lens that's easy to keep on your camera all the time, you should think about getting a wider angle lens, between 28 or 35mm. But 50mm is nice and useful too, and you'll be able to use a lens like this for all sorts of photography. So let's talk about this Sigma lens itself. As you can see, compared to Canon's 50mm lenses, this thing is huge. And I can also tell you it's pretty heavy. Why is it so big? Well, Sigma decided to make a lens with a very large front element in order to reduce those dark corners in the edges of your picture, also known as vignetting. Here's an image taken on my full-frame camera at f1.4 when vignetting is at its worst. As you can see, the Sigma lens does produce a little vignetting in the corners, but as you can see here, it's less than the Canon 50mm 1.4. So that's why this lens is so gigantic. It seems that Sigma has some kind of irrational hatred of vignetting, but anyway, at least it means the lens is built like a tank, even if it takes up a lot of space in your camera bag. The focus ring is fairly smooth, but a little bit stiff. It rotates about 100 degrees in a full turn, which is far enough for precise focusing, but short enough to make it easy to focus when you're video making. Here's my best handheld focus pill. Quite nice really. The lens uses Sigma's HSM autofocus system, which is quite fast and very quiet, as you can hear here. I experienced quite some problems with autofocus accuracy. At f1.4 my copy of the lens tended to back focus a little bit. So if you decide to buy a copy of this lens, make sure you keep the receipt in case it needs to go back to Sigma for adjustment. The problem was at least consistent, so if it was sent back to Sigma to be adjusted, then it would probably work just fine. The lens does have full-time manual focusing, which means you can turn that focus ring anytime you like without messing up the lens. And also the front element doesn't rotate, which is good news for people using filters. The lens is not image stabilized, so your video work might be a little wobbly. This is the best I could do handheld. So overall, the lens is built very nicely indeed, although I still can't quite get over its enormous size. Now let's look at the image quality. Most 50mm lenses are quite old designs now, so I was interested to see how well Sigma's modern lens design would perform. Here's how it performs with the aperture wide open at f1.4. Sharpness is okay in the center, and the lens is giving above average color and contrast for a fast lens. There is a little purple fringing, which you can see in the windows, but there's less than I thought there would be. The corners are fairly soft, but I'm not seeing much in the way of chromatic aberration, which is pretty good. If we stop down to f2, there's a nice improvement in those corners, but things are still a little bit soft. The middle of the frame looks pretty sharp now, and the purple fringing is all cleared up. At f2.8, things are very nice and contrasty. Here's f4 and f5.6. The picture quality has become excellent throughout the image frame, even in the corners. It's very sharp indeed, although I have seen slightly sharper lenses. So overall, the picture quality is very nice. It's a very sharp lens. Another positive thing is that I'm seeing great colours and contrast from this lens, even when the aperture is wide open at f1.4. And if you look at the background blur, you can see that the quality of the bokeh is really nice and lovely, and for me that's quite a big deal. Those out of focus backgrounds look really smooth and don't throw up any weird highlights. I was never really happy with the quality of the bokeh on my Canon 50mm lenses, either the 1.4 or the 1.8, so this is really great to see. As you can see here, the lens struggles working against bright light. The lens retains contrast, but as you can see there's some pretty ugly flaring going on. It annoyed me by wrecking this cool nighttime picture I was trying to get. Something that's typical for a fast lens is longitudinal chromatic aberration. Here at f1.4 you can see green highlights behind the focal plane and purple in front of the focal plane. These are a real pain, but they're just typical for a fast camera lens really, and they do go away as you stop down. Here you can see at f4 they're pretty much gone. So all in all, I like the pictures this lens produces. Photography isn't all about sharpness, it's about the character of your pictures, and this lens really has a nice character of its own. The colours and contrast and sharpness at f1.4 are really refreshing, and the quality of the bokeh is wonderful to see. Pictures with this lens can really stand out. As I said before, the autofocus accuracy on my copy did have some problems, so keep your warranty card in case your copy needs adjustment. If you'd like to see a video directly comparing this to two of Canon's 50mm lenses, then check my channel later, as I'll be uploading one in a couple of days. The Sigma 50mm f1.4 lens is certainly quite expensive, but you do get what you pay for. It is a very nice piece of kit, and if you can get a copy with good autofocus, then you'll be delighted. A very nice camera lens indeed.